All right. I have 7:01. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Irvin,
Here.
Counselor Heinck, Counselor Lammerman,
Here.
Counselor Merriday,
Here.
Counselor Settlemeyer,
Here.
Counselor Wilson,
Here.
Mayor Solzberg.
Here. Thank you. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Items to be added to the agenda. I see none. Special presentations, Urban Renewal, City Manager, Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. Elaine, I'll let you just introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Elaine Howard, the consultant who's working with you on the potential urban renewal area. I've actually been working with you for a couple of years, and some of you are familiar faces, but there's a lot of turnover too. I do urban renewal across the state of Oregon, and I've been working with you on your potential one with for about almost 2 years. Shall I move ahead? Okay, next slide. I'm going to start with a description of what is tax increment financing or urban renewal in Oregon, do a little crash course Urban Renewal 101 to talk about the proposed Cottage Grove urban renewal area, what the present status is, what we're working on right now, and then take questions and discussion. Next. So in Oregon, tax increment financing is an economic development tool. It is unique in that it is a financing tool. So we develop a plan that gets reviewed and potentially adopted by the city council. And the great thing about that plan, unlike other plans that you adopt, it has money that comes with it. It has a financing tool. It's used to address blighting conditions, and we'll talk about what that is, but that's defined in the statute that authorizes urban renewal. And it functions on the increases in property tax revenues in those specified urban renewal areas. It's used all over Oregon. This shows you where all of those urban renewal areas are. And you can see up and down the I-5 corridor, there are a number of urban renewal areas close to you. Cresswell has one, and then Springfield, Coburg, Harrisburg, Eugene has a couple, and it's used widely up and down the coast and out I-84. The most important thing for people to remember about urban renewal is that it is not a new tax. That becomes confusing because when you get a property tax bill, if you have urban renewal in your community, there'll be a line item for urban renewal and there'll be a tax amount associated with it. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes about why that happens and what that looks like, but it is not a new tax. Urban renewal is funded by a division of taxes that are already paid, and it is a reduction to the actual taxing districts in the amount of money that they get instead of an increase to people who own property within the city of Cottage Grove. In an urban renewal area or in anywhere in the state of Oregon, your property tax revenue, when we get our bills in November and we pay our bills, that property tax revenue goes to the regular taxing jurisdictions. It's collected by the assessor, meted out to those taxing jurisdictions. There are only two reasons in Oregon why property taxes increase. The assessor's allowed to increase our taxes by 3% every year, regardless of whether we do any improvements to our property. That typically happens every year unless we're in a recession. Your real market values, and this is what a lot of times is confusing to people, may go up way more than that, but your assessed values, the value upon which you pay taxes, may not go up more than that 3% unless there's new construction or you do a substantial rehabilitation on your property. If you do either of those activities, the assessor is allowed to totally reassess the value of your property, and it can go up as much as the assessor deems appropriate to what the real market value is. Next. When you create an urban renewal area, the assessor creates something called a frozen base of assessed value that is shown by the blue within that circle. That's only for the properties that are within the urban renewal area. And that doesn't mean that their taxes are frozen at that point. It just means that the taxes are divided into two income streams. The first income stream is the amount based on the value of the properties at the time your urban renewal area started, that's shown by the green. Any increase in assessed value and increase in taxes on that assessed value over time goes to the urban renewal area. So you continue paying those taxes, but the assessor divides them out into two separate income streams. Why do cities decide to use urban renewal? They decide to use it because they're looking for a new income source to complete activities within a specified area of the city. Usually the general fund doesn't have sufficient monies. You've got a wonderful grant that is doing your Main Street, but those grants are far and few between, and you're lucky to have gotten that. And that activity can really be a jumpstart to your urban renewal area. But typically, you're relying on property tax revenues from your permanent rate property taxes. We talked earlier about blight has to be a precondition of an urban renewal area. In the ordinance that would adopt an urban renewal plan, you have to specify what blight occurs within that area. That blight is typically underdevelopment or underutilization of property, poor condition of buildings, inadequacy of infrastructure, including streets and utilities. So in looking at this particular area, we've been working with your staff and with Faye Stewart, your Public Works Director, to identify all of the street and utility deficiencies within the area to be able to identify that blight. And then as we go out and look at the buildings, especially along Main Street, we can see that many of those buildings could be upgraded and probably have seismic issues associated with them that could benefit from rehabilitation loans or investments in those properties. An urban renewal area functions on an income source. That's that taxes that come from the increased assessed value. It has expenses. Those expenses are projects, programs, and administration of the area. And it has a spending limit. So that's what is different from it than your own city budget. The maximum indebtedness is the total amount of money in an urban renewal area that you may spend on projects, programs, and administration over the life of the urban renewal area. We project what that maximum indebtedness might be at the beginning. So we are looking out for 30 years and making a projection of what that might be. And we have information on that for this projected area, but those are projections. So we have used a 30-year time frame to make those projections. That urban renewal area could be shorter than that, or it could be longer than that. Duration is not a requirement of an urban renewal plan. The limiting factor of an urban renewal plan is that maximum indebtedness. When you have spent that amount of money, your urban renewal area ends. This just shows in a different form how an urban renewal area works. So at the time that it's formed, you have the frozen base shown in gray along the bottom. That stays constant throughout the life of the urban renewal area, and all of the taxes off of that go to the taxing districts. That blue shows the increment or taxes of the assessed value in the future. What this does a good job of showing is that as an urban renewal area ends, all of that assessed value goes back on the tax rolls for all the different taxing districts to be able to use. This just shows that with a different concept in mind. It shows that 3% appreciation that we talked about earlier, that all of our assessed values may go up by 3%. That's shown in the orange. That is what the taxing districts are really foregoing. That is what they won't get because this is in an urban renewal area. The dark orange shows the potential increase in assessed value and therefore increase in taxes within that area due to your ability to do projects and programs within the area, due to your ability to put in infrastructure that will allow buildings to be able to develop, to improve your streets, to help with the rehabilitation of your buildings. What urban renewal does is leverages the city's tax rate. So I've had city councilors ask me, well, why can't we just set aside our city taxes for that particular area? You can decide to do that, but as you look at that pie of the permanent rate property taxes, your city tax rate is a little under 50% of the total tax rate. By establishing an urban renewal area, you get that full pie. So you get the additional 52% of that permanent rate taxes to be able to use within the urban renewal area. So this goes back to that urban renewal on your property tax bill and explains why that exists and how that might look on a property tax bill. So once you have an urban renewal, if you adopt this, the assessor has to go through each year the following steps. They have to calculate the increase in assessed value within the urban renewal area and then calculate the amount of taxes that would be collected off of that increase in assessed value. Let's say that amount is $50,000. The assessor has to then distribute that $50,000 tax payment to the urban renewal agency across every tax bill within the city. So if you adopt an urban renewal plan, on every tax bill within the city, there'll be a line item that says urban renewal. And what it is dividing out those taxes that you would already pay, but giving a portion of that to urban renewal. If you have an urban renewal area and that urban renewal area closes, your property tax bill does not go down. Those funds are just redistributed back to the other taxing districts. So it's taking some of those monies from those other taxing districts, giving them to the urban renewal area. That happened, that distribution formula, because of measures 47 and 50 and the limitations on our property taxes. And that was the only way the court system and the Department of Revenue figured out how to fund urban renewal in the future. So it distributes it to all property tax bills, and it's not an increase in those bills. This just shows a hypothetical property tax bill. So if you have a property value of $380,000, that's in that second column within the city, and you are taxed on that at the tax rate of 15.1870, you would pay $7,577 on your property tax bill. The next year, that would go up by 3%. That 3% brings that property tax bill up to $7,805. If this property went into the urban renewal area this year and next year that 3% goes up, the assessor would take that 3% increase or $227 and allocate that to the urban renewal agency. When you look at the bottom row, however, on without urban renewal and with urban renewal, it is the same number, $7,805. It's just in the second one, you see that all of the other taxing districts have a little bit lower amount of money that they get, and urban renewal gets the difference between that. So the impacts of urban renewal are on the taxing districts. They continue receiving money on the value as established, the frozen base. They forego money over the life of an urban renewal area. And many times that growth in assessed value would not have happened except for the ability for urban renewal to fund infrastructure, development loans, redevelopment loans within that area. was gonna say, did I put that in twice? Go ahead, one more. Schools are a little different. Our schools, we say, are indirectly impacted by urban renewal, and that is because there is a state school fund. On our regular taxing jurisdictions, it's a direct impact. Those local property taxes are impacted by urban renewal. The taxing district gets less money. For schools, this is the state school fund. It is the mess that our state school funding is. Urban renewal impacts up at the top here, but those monies are backfilled by other funding sources. Our schools are funded on a per pupil basis established by the legislators every 2 years when they meet. If you have urban renewal in your city or urban renewal in Portland or urban renewal in Eugene, it does not impact the amount of the per pupil funding for your students in your schools because it's backfilled. That goes for your local school district, for the education service districts. The community colleges have a similar fund, but it's based on number of classes taken by students. There are limitations on how much urban renewal can be allocated within any city. For a city that's under a population of 50,000, you may have 25% of your assessed value and 25% of your acreage within an urban renewal area. Once you have a plan, it cannot be increased in size by more than 20% of the original acreage. And that maximum indebtedness or total number of the amount of money that you may spend may not be increased by more than 20% as indexed annually by inflation, unless 75% of the taxing districts concur with that by their tax rate. So that's usually city, school district, county, and fire district. So 3 out of 4 of those. A plan is adopted by, during the feasibility study, we had a couple of city council meetings, open meetings where people could hear information. We have an agency meeting scheduled in 2 weeks, which is an open public meeting, presentation to the county, a planning commission review for conformance to your comprehensive plan, and then a city council hearing and vote on a non-emergency ordinance. That city council hearing has to be noticed citywide to either voters, residents, or utility customers. There are project limitations that are listed in the Oregon Revised Statute that covers urban renewal. And they're listed in 0.170 and 0.180, but generally they involve rehabilitation of buildings, doing utilities, acquisition of properties. If it's going to be for a private development, from willing sellers only, no eminent domain can be used to buy property from one person and then sell it to another private individual. And then making of grants or loans within the area are the major types of things that happen. So our status with you is in 2024, we studied 2 different boundaries. We came back and did a presentation to the city council. The city council at that time directed staff to begin the drafting of an urban renewal plan and report. And then you had a bunch of staff turnover. And so this went on the shelf for a bit until about 6 weeks ago when staff called me back up and said, okay, we're ready to move ahead and let's start with the first step of getting all of our city council and mayor informed again of what urban renewal is. So that's where we are tonight. We have adjusted the draft boundary just a little bit, but this is the draft boundary. So it's mainly your downtown and then the commercial areas outside of the downtown, and then some residential areas up to the north. We can come back to this map at any time. Next slide. The projected maximum indebtedness over a 30-year time frame is $65,400,000. That is not money you have access to at the beginning. That is money that you have access to over the time frame of those 30 years. The 5-year increments that are shown here show the amount that we anticipate you'll have over those 5-year periods. So years 1 through 5 is always lower because you're relying on that 3% increase. So about 1.8 million. And then that ramps up over time until the end when you have about $9.6 million. That net TIF up on top is your maximum indebtedness and any interest you pay on debt if you take out any long-term loans or issue any bonds for the area. When I say issue bonds, people should know that those aren't general obligation bonds that they have to pay. They are bonds that are paid out of that tax increment revenue. The capacity, the third row down in 2025 dollars, is really important when we're working with your staff and you in terms of what does that $65 million look like when we're looking at project with costs in today's dollars? So that capacity means if we're outlining potential projects, that's the total amount of money that we can put in our estimates, because over time, given inflation, those project costs will increase to that 65 million. So when we're working with your staff, we're looking at about $37 million of projects in today's dollars. Staff has given us this list of projects. There are specific individual projects under each category, but we're basically looking at these categories. You can see that economic development land acquisition is at $8 million of that. We've come up with 35 million. There's about 2 million we still have left to allocate. But the economic development land acquisition is about 23%. Emergency preparedness, 1 million at 3% of the total funds. Unique district identity, so trying to work on some of your historic buildings on Main Street to go along with all of the investment you're doing with your street and streetscape. Parks at 1%, 500,000. Transportation, pedestrian, ADA at about 10.9 million. That is your largest category. Utilities, water, sewer, storm, power, 4.7 million. Staffing and finance planning, about 4 million over the lifetime of the area. And then a development loan program of about 6 million. And like I said, we have about $2 million remaining to allocate there. And if we come back or you have any questions on this, Faye has been working on this and he'd be glad to answer any of those questions. On your statutory limitations, this acreage is about 10%, so under the 25% limitation, and it's about 7% of your assessed value, so also under your limitation. Usually, you can tell when an area is underperforming because your amount of acreage percentage, if it's a well-performing area, ought to be kind of equal to what the assessed value is. And you can see that your assessed value in that area is lower than the rest of the city. And we do a more specific analysis of improvement to land within the report that we submit to you with a final ordinance. You have an existing urban renewal agency. It hasn't been used for a number of years. Mr. Stewart has been doing a yeoman's job of trying to track down the information on that. We do have all that information now. We do have a meeting set up for in 2 weeks. And at that meeting, we will ask you to elect officers and adopt some bylaws to get that urban renewal agency going again. It was established way before measures 47 and 50. So it needs to be brought up to date to the standards today of what urban renewal agencies have. So having bylaws is one of those. We are working on the goals and objectives and the project list, and we have a potential schedule for adoption. That schedule is shown here, and I'm sorry that the print's so small, but I will read it for you. So a potential agency meeting on September 22nd. If you decide to go ahead, move ahead from that meeting, we would send the plan and report out to all of the taxing jurisdictions for a required 45-day review by them. We would meet with the county. We've already talked to them about potential dates for that. We would have a planning commission meeting on October 15th. City Council notice the first part of November, City Council hearing November 10th, City Council second reading of ordinance November 24th. Takes 30 days for a non-emergency ordinance to become effective. That would be December 24th. This is a compressed timeline. The reason we have put this together, we may or may not need it depending on how quickly you all decide you want to move ahead. We have been working on it for a long time, but the reason we have this compressed, if you adopt and have an urban renewal area go into effect before January 1st, you'll get your first increment in fiscal year 26-27. If this all moves out a month, it's not effective till January. You don't get your first increment until fiscal year 27-28. So it moves you a whole year out in terms of when you might have access to funds to help reinvigorate that whole area. You may decide that's necessary. This just shows you what we've committed to do for you if you want to proceed at that schedule. And we're to questions, if anybody has any.
Any questions? Counselor Sotomayor.
It's just maybe a minor thing, but everything goes up until years 21 through 25 for your maximum indebtedness. I wasn't following any pattern other than it kept on going up, and then second to the last line over there is less of a 5-year collection.
And that's probably because we project issuing a bond in years 16 through 20. So you get that money earlier. And then the next year's collections go down a little bit because you're paying bond payments instead of having that as revenue to spend. Good question.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I look forward to hearing from you all and working with your staff on moving ahead. Thank you.
Item B, Emerald Peoples Utility District, City Manager, Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening again, Your Honor, members of the council. Again, please introduce yourselves and
Yeah, hi, Kyle Rodman. I'm the general manager of Emerald Peoples Utility District, or EPUD. Pleasure to be with you tonight. We got a short presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions at any point if you have them, so feel free to shout those out. I've got a couple other folks with me here. In the back, Mark Ramers, our operations manager. He can answer any questions you might have about our system or investments we've made recently. And Dale Olson in the back is the board director for the Cottage Grove area. So hopefully a familiar face to many of you here. All right, we'll go to the next slide if we're ready. So why are we here? We wanted to kind of cut right to the chase here. Over the last several years, and especially in recent months, we have heard significant interest from this community about EPUD serving the city. And that includes outreach from both our current customers that we talk to a lot, as well as non-customers here in the downtown area. And we're involved with the chamber and other avenues down here where we do have a good dialogue with folks in the city. And so we have these kind of conversations quite often. So we're here in response to that interest, and because we know that both sides have a lot that we can benefit from if we were to expand our presence down here in Cottage Grove. And we think we owe it to our customers to at least look into this option. That being said, I want to be very clear that we are not here to push this effort on you, that this is 100% the choice of the city and of your citizens. We can be a resource if it's something you'd like to pursue, but this is completely the choice of the city as we go forward here. Next slide, please. So who is EPUD? Emerald Peoples Utility District, also known as Emerald or EPUD. We were formed back in the 1970s in response to high electricity rates and poor service. This was a grassroots effort from folks around Lane County that saw substandard service where they were living and wanted something better. I'll talk about our founders in just a minute here, but after a long struggle, it started back in the 1950s. There was a successful formation vote in 1978, and we began operations in 1983. So we're just over 40 years old, very proud of our history and our legacy. The original vision included not just our current service territory, which, as you'll see, encompasses most of Lane County. It also included the small to medium-sized cities around this area, including the city of Cottage Grove. Unfortunately, what we found, looking back at all the records, there was an intense campaign. There were a lot of scare tactics and smear tactics being used, and that led to a split vote. And so today, we have a situation where EPUD serves around most of the cities here, but not the downtown city core. There were separate votes between the county areas and the cities, and that split vote led to what we call island cities, which we have today. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of our founders, and I mentioned we're very proud of our history, and I think it helps to put a face to some of the folks that started this place. This was a grassroots community effort. These were salt of the earth farmers, Grange members, business owners. Again, folks that knew they weren't getting the level of service that they deserved, and that their neighbors, frankly, were getting either across town or across the county. And so they set about doing something about it. This is, after the utility had been established. Many of them, passed away soon after this. But we always remember the folks that started this place because they had a mentality that, if something's not right, we're going to do something about it. We're going to make a change, and that's what they did. Next slide, please. One of the gentlemen that was most responsible, his name was Ralph Earl. This is, the godfather of EPUD, if there was one. He was a farmer from Pleasant Hill, very, very soft-spoken gentleman, but he really drove the creation of EPUD. And when he passed in 1993, this was on the program for his memorial service. And I love this quote because it really speaks to what we're all about at EPUD. He said, "Let this organization, this democratic organization, be a monument to all people who have proven that by planning and hard work, we can make democracy succeed in the marketplace. Through their efforts, all citizens, regardless of birth, circumstance, or heritage, may share a better life." I think that really speaks to what we're all about. We believe in providing an essential service to this community, and we think by doing that, we can improve the lives of our customers, and we carry that forward today. Next slide, please. One last picture. This is of our first board of directors, and the one that I really like to highlight is the individual on the right side. Her name was Sigrid Rasmussen. She was our board member from up in Junction City at the time. I got a chance to actually go meet her a couple of years ago when we had our 40th anniversary, and what she told me was beyond having her children, the thing that she was most proud of in her life was helping to establish EPUD and improve her community. And so again, this has deep roots at EPUD. This goes all the way back to the early days of Lane County and trying to improve what we have around here. Next slide, please. So I mentioned our original vision. We have our current territory up here on the map. We go all the way from Veneta Notai up to Harrisburg, down through Marcola and Mohawk Valley, Pleasant Hill, Cresswell, Dexter, and then of course down here near Cottage Grove. And I've got the cities highlighted on there because our original vision did include each of these cities. Next slide, I'll go into exactly what happened. So again, after that campaign was waged and there were words exchanged around this new upstart utility. You can't trust these guys. They got all this debt. They'll never be able to hire staff. This will never work, right? Unfortunately, that was enough to sway the votes in the 4 cities that you can see there in red. So we were highly successful in North and South unincorporated Lane County. We were successful in Veneta, but the other ones, you can see it was a matter of dozens of votes. In Cottage Grove, it was 23 votes out of 2,000 cast back at that time. And to this day, we only serve Veneta. We don't serve these other cities. And we think that's a shame because we bring a lot of benefits to the table. Next slide, please. So what we have today is up here, which is the same map, but it identifies this kind of island city scenario that we have where we basically completely surround Cottage Grove, Cresswell, Junction City, Coburg, but we don't have that downtown core. And over time, that's led to a lot of inefficiency on both sides. And it's led to a real disparity in the level of service and the cost of service that oftentimes neighbors right across the street are receiving, compared to one another. And this persists. Again, this is from the original 1978 formation vote. But to this day, we have that difference in service that persists, including down here in Cottage Grove. Next slide, please. So I like to go back and, all these characterizations and scare tactics that were used back in the 70s. I like to now having 40 years of history compare, what is our track record since that time? We've got 42 years of history. So here's, objective facts. How has EPUD done over those years? Well, we have the second lowest rates of 6 utilities in the local area. We are 30% below our predecessor, Pacific Power. So we have scenarios inside Cottage Grove right now where you have one neighbor that's paying 30% less than a neighbor that's right across the street. That difference exists to this day. Our original debt has been largely paid off. Our debt to asset ratio is under 30%. So a lot of the big claims early on were that, hey, they're taking out all this debt. They'll never be able to pay that off. They'll never be able to have rates that are lower because of all the debt. Well, the debt's pretty much gone. We have issued some recently so that we can invest back into our system, and we spend tens of millions of dollars every single year improving our system. And that's the only reason we currently have debt today. We just had a big credit review. We have investment grade credit ratings from Moody's and Fitch. They gave us A1, and AA minus, very, very high. I mentioned, spent hundreds of millions of dollars investing in reliability. We do a lot of those projects down here in Cottage Grove. I imagine you've seen our crews working. A lot of times that's not just doing maintenance, that's actually capital improvements to make the system more reliable. We have a 90% customer satisfaction score for reliability. We just did that survey in April of this year, and we're very proud of that track record. That means a lot to us. We have 87 local employees that live and work in this community, many of them in Cottage Grove. I'm sure, if they were in here, you'd know many of their faces. Next slide, please. This is our recent bill comparison. So, we've got the data if you ever want to dig into it or see it, but, you can see we're comfortably there in second place, again, 30% below the top end. Next slide, please. This is a summary of our reliability study. We're happy to provide the full report on this if you're interested. But again, the overall satisfaction rate was 90%. We also asked about the January ice storm back in 2024. And despite the horrendous ordeal that was for everybody in the area, we received a 75% satisfaction score for that event. We're very proud of our performance during that. Our crews were heroic. And we've received, credible feedback from our customers throughout that event. A lot of the comments are in here, but there's plenty of good feedback around being reliable, having good customer service, all those things that you would want to see. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about what is a PUD, what is a People's Utility District. We, EPUD, exist under a well-established legal framework. The state of Oregon actually encourages the formation of consumer-owned utilities like EPUD, including public utility districts or people's utility districts here in Oregon. PUDs are established in the Oregon Constitution. So you can go read Article 11, Section 12. You'll find a definition of people's utility district and some explanation as to what we're all about. They are further defined in the Oregon Revised Statutes, Section 261. And if you go to that, you'll read that PUDs are said to exist for the benefit of the people of this state. The Oregon legislature is on record as recognizing that PUDs provide a benefit for the citizens of this state, and that's why we're here. Over time, 6 PUDs have formed in the state of Oregon, including us, and we serve a lot of mix of rural and urban areas. We have comparable cities. I mentioned Veneta here for EPUD, but we also, as PUDs, serve Newport, Tillamook, Scappoose, The Dalles, just to name a few. So we're very used and familiar to providing service to both types of customers, urban and rural. Next, please. Why PUDs? So I mentioned that the state recognizes the advantages that PUDs have over investor-owned utilities. Among those advantages, first on the list, I would say local control. We have a locally elected board of 5 people that's elected from across the district. Dale is the representative from the Cottage Grove area. And that 5-person board of directors makes all the decisions about what happens at the utility. That includes rate making, how much we charge customers. That includes policies in terms of what kind of power supply we buy. That includes everything that there is with regard to policy happens at the utility level. Contrast that with the investor-owned utilities that are regulated from Salem under the auspices of the state government. That's a huge difference. And in general, there's a preference for local control, and that's one of the reasons the states have enabled PUDs. We also have the ability to purchase low-cost federal hydropower. This is an extreme advantage that we have as a consumer-owned utility in the Northwest. The federal government, through the Bonneville Power Administration, operates the dams on the Columbia River system, and they sell to consumer-owned utilities at cost. So that allows us to buy power supply at about half the cost of what typically you would be paying on a market purchase or if you were to build your own generation. And then finally, we have the pleasure of not having to pay out shareholders. So our customers are our owners. We charge exactly what it costs us to provide the service. We don't send money back to a home office. We don't pay dividends. We don't have share buybacks, any of that stuff. We are just here to serve our customers. Next slide, please. So PUD boundary changes. I'll just say that PUD boundaries may expand over time as communities seek the same benefits that others have in the state. This process is clearly defined in Oregon law, and we at EPUD stand ready to support any community that wants to take a look at this and explore this option. Next slide, please. Talk a little bit about our service already in Cottage Grove. We already serve a fairly significant portion of Cottage Grove. We have about 841 out of just shy of 5,000 addresses that are EPUD customers inside the city limits. Our district almost entirely surrounds the city of Cottage Grove. I mentioned that before. And so as growth occurs, as the city moves your boundary out, you're typically coming into EPUD territory. And that's how we've got the situation that we have today. Also, just a quick note, we also use the same distribution voltage as your current provider, which is an advantage for us versus others that might be positioned in the same scenario. And combine both the geographic proximity and the voltage being the same, it just makes interconnection that much easier if that's the decision that you want to make. Next slide, please. This is a picture of the city boundaries along with EPUD boundaries. It's pretty hard to see, so we're happy to provide maps of this. But all the shaded purple area is current city boundaries as we understand them. And the EPUD boundaries are there in green. So anything that's outside of the green but still shaded is going to be EPUD service to the city of Cottage Grove. Anything inside of that is going to be Pacific Power. Next slide, please. All right, last thing I've got before we have a brief video that we wanted to show. What is our ask? We've talked about this a couple times with our board. Again, we've heard this interest over the years, and it feels like it's growing. And so we wanted to at least have a position on this. Our board is interested in whether we should spend additional time pursuing this option with the city, and they would appreciate a formal statement of interest of some type if this is something that the city wants to pursue. That could take the form of a council vote or a letter, something that lets us know that this is worth spending our time and effort on. If that were to happen, the logical next step after that would be a third-party feasibility study where we invite in an engineering firm to weigh the costs and benefits of doing this and, see how everything pencils out. Separately, there's also the option of having a non-binding advisory vote of the population. That's something that's been done in other cities like Hermiston, where they've gone down this road. So there are some options for moving forward, but this has all happened before. There have been communities that wanted to go down this road, and there's a well-worn path that we're happy to explore with you. We just want to make sure that this is a project that's worth spending more time on. So that's what I have. Happy to take questions, or we can do the video if you have 5 minutes. I don't know if you've already seen it, or we'll take a question.
Councilor Settlemeyer.
Thank you.
Sure.
I think this would be wonderful from what I've seen so far for our city. However, there's a couple of, should I talk about all the material we got?
Whatever you like, sure.
Oh,
Yeah. So some of the
wonderful.
material was provided from EPUD, some of it was given to us, and we provided it to the city.
Okay. Just the part that I'm kind of concerned about, trying to be transparent
Sure.
with this whole process, is it appears like we got copies of a citizen questionnaire about, essentially saying that this is the way they would prefer we went. And on it, it said that we would save 30%. And am I incorrect to think that perhaps we would have to pay a little bit more until you moved into the area and essentially brought up the infrastructure to where we could see the shiny you?
I think that's probably fair. We didn't, we didn't produce the material out there, so they probably looked at our rate comparison and put that on there. But I think it's fair to say that there'd be a transition period. If we were to acquire the system, there would be a cost, and we would want to have a plan to pay off whatever that cost is. But I do think there'd be an immediate rate benefit. I just don't know what size that would be initially.
And perhaps is that maybe if we gave some kind of vote or we pursued encouraging this, that before we actually did the final kind of thing?
Oh, yeah, we would
see that.
Yeah, that's what a feasibility study would lay out, exactly what that transition period could look like. There can be a negotiation between us and the city in terms of what's most important to you. We would have some decisions to make around reliability investments. What level of service is the city looking to have, and are you willing to pay a bit more for that? There's some questions there that we'd want to work through.
Counselor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, Council, couple quick questions. In the areas surrounding the city, do you have an idea what the percentage of above ground utilities are versus below ground?
Let's see, we could probably speak to our system. I'm not sure if we could speak to the current system. Do you have any idea of the overhead versus underground in the city limits? Want to come up? Sorry. We'll make sure they can hear Mark. He's usually very easy to hear.
Thanks for having me tonight. The answer to your question is it's a good mix of some of the stuff is old EPA or PPL infrastructure that we have. And so over time, we've tried to put some of it underground where it makes sense. And some of it was old underground that we've replaced over the years. It's some 1970s direct buried underground that we've replaced in conduit and spent a lot of money doing that. But anytime we have like subdivisions and stuff, if you notice where we had those down off Sweet Lane and different places like that, we've done underground. Up there at Watauga Place and all that, we've spent a few $100,000 replacing all that old underground infrastructure that was failing. And so we try to put money back in the system, don't just keep band-aiding it.
And then a couple other quick questions.
Sure.
Give or take over the last year, you kind of have an idea of how many equipment related outages you guys experienced?
I don't have that off the top of my head, no. Much like any utility, yeah, we're gonna have equipment failure, underground outages. But I think we do things a little differently in the fact that instead of band-aiding it, we've had a system over the years. You get 3 failures on cable, it's time to replace it. I think we've been a lot more proactive than that. It's part of the reason why we've gone out and invested some money in that. And everything we go and do, we put it up back in conduit, so we don't have to worry about that. And we spend the money on the best cable money can buy, which is Okanite, and try to do it all one and done.
And then
We'd be happy to get that data for you
Yeah.
if you're curious. Yeah, we've got all that.
And then one last question. We all know how bad the ice storm was for our community. Do you have kind of an idea how long it took to have services 100% restored?
Yes. About 17 days.
17?
And that was a 550 square mile district. So we didn't mess around. We got 136 linemen in here. And to give you an idea of the gravity of the storm for us, we go through about 400 poles a year, 200 transformers, give or take. And that's what we lost generally in literally 3 or 4 days. And we put it all back up in 17 days. So we're pretty proud of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Counselor Urban.
Thank you, and I appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah.
Going down this path. Can you speak to the access to two linemen, two crews in your expansion efforts. It'd be my understanding there's limited or finite number in this area that you'd be pulling from, and there's competition and there's direct employees and there's contractors.
Yeah.
How would you envision if you took over this or other municipalities that are on that vision list?
Yeah, great question. Thank you very much. We don't use contractors. We have full-time employees that do all of our work for us. If there's a storm or something, we may bring a contractor in, but our staff is our staff. So we have right now a dedicated serviceman that serves this area and up through about Crestwell. We would plan to do an assessment based on the feasibility study and staff up to some degree to handle the additional footprint that we would be serving. Our response time is typically top in the industry. If we have an outage, we're there in under an hour. We typically have it fixed in the minimum amount of time that you'll see in the industry. We've got crews on call around the clock. It's not uncommon to see them called out overnight. We'll have a dozen guys that show up in a matter of an hour or two. And we would make sure Cottage Grove gets the exact same service that we have everywhere else in the district. This would be an important project for us, and we'd put the money in to make sure that it's successful.
That's a good point. We have 4 crews, 4-man crews, 22 linemen generally on staff, which is plenty to take care of things. I think, I've been here 27 years and I've watched our system go from 35-mile-an-hour wind taking us down for a day and a half, 2 days to we barely have any, just a few limbs here and there that we're knocking off the line. So we've done a lot of infrastructure work that I've seen over the years. And then we also about 5 years ago bumped up to the 4th crew just to really put our money where our mouth on it is. We really want to be super reliable. I think people, when they pay their power bill, they want something from it, right? And it's not just lip service.
While I'm weighing these things out, I'm hearing essentially what would be the competitive advantages.
Yeah.
Cheaper buying power, cheaper from the source, overhead going to investors. But there's things that private groups have as an advantage, I would presume. I don't know. Like I hear about things that they've done to support the hospital or the different investments in the community. Mobile substation, access bigger capital things that can come in, and I heard about a generator program. Where if you're lean, you're providing the service. Where do you compete on those kinds of things? Is it purely on rates and the service provided by propositions?
That's a great question. Great way to look at things. I like to think we're fairly balanced on that front. We invest a lot in our community. I think you see us down here if you go to chamber events. We're the first to sponsor tables where there are events happening. We can make bigger investments as well if there's a business case for us to try to do that. Ultimately, we have to kind of weigh out, where our funds are going to go because it's customer money, but we're not unwilling to make those types of investments. In fact, we have many of the same programs you just mentioned, including a generator program. We do a lot of work off hours to improve reliability and keep outages to a minimum. And I think that's really what sets us apart more than anything. We're willing to spend the money on investing rather than just fixing. We don't just come to fix a line. We actually come to replace it and do it the right way.
An article that I read. Is there a great is it like 30% energy loss through buried lines because of the way electricity travels through aerial lines? Isn't just through the line, it's the electromagnetic sphere around it. Do you actually get less transmission through buried lines, and therefore
less line loss?
Less line loss.
Not necessarily. The way cable is made, it's designed just like, it's better than overhead in the fact that it's all one cable. It's tighter. It's more reliable and all that kind of stuff. As far as line loss, yeah, you can get some line loss on overhead, but it's very minimal.
Yeah, that's not been our experience. We've really seen a lot of difference there. Typically, if you're in underground, it's for the reliability aspects, and those benefits are often very, very important to our customers.
The issue with it, just so you know, so if I was to build an overhead line versus an underground line's 4 times the amount of money, right? So you have to really think about when you do that sort of thing. So you have to be very careful, make sure it's the biggest bang for the buck. And that's something we always look at, right? So we have 23,000 customers. They're all paying for everything that we're doing something up in Junction City or in Veneta, whatever, unless it's a developer that's developing, then that cost goes right off to them. But yeah, we always weigh everything, looking at every customer. That's quite important.
Anyone else? Well, my 2 cents on this is I think it is advantageous of the city to always look at what is going to give our customers, our citizens, the most bang for their buck, their lowest pricing, especially in times that we're going through today. And so I think that we are doing our due diligence and commend council for taking the time and commend you for coming to speak. And if no one else has anything, I'll let you go ahead and get to your video.
All right, well, it's a little 5-minute video we'll show. Thank you. If it works, if not, we'll send you the link. All right, that's our story. Happy to answer other questions or turn it over.
Counselor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as a point of procedure, if we wanted to have a feasibility study done, what would be the next step? Just a consensus amongst the city council, or will we need a motion at that point?
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. I think the next step would be for council to direct staff to work with EPUD on, what would be included in a feasibility study. Obviously, we're talking about, hiring a consultant to do the study. I don't know what the cost would be. I don't know what, whether the city would be asked to contribute to that or not. But that's a conversation that we could have at a staff level and then bring information back to you.
Personally, like to see that done.
Counselor.
Can you go into more of what a feasibility study would bring out?
Yeah, so it'll look at the cost of acquiring the current system from the incumbent utility. There'll be a range of, potential outcomes there, and we would look out over, the decades on how long it might take to pay that back and what that would mean for rates. We'd also, take a look at, where we'd want to staff up and potentially add some additional headcount down here in this area and what that could mean for reliability. We could look at capital improvement projects that may be overdue for the city and investing some money there too, and exactly how that would play into everything. So it's a real look at all the costs and benefits and trying to get to some of those trade-offs. We are happy to help with that. We have obviously connections in the industry that we can use to help move that along. There is a cost to it. We're happy to pay a substantial portion of that, but we'd want to talk at least a little bit about kind of how that structure looks.
Counselor Sotomayor.
I think I know the answer to this, but it just seems, with my money talk earlier, it seems obvious that Pacific Power's rates are greatly enhanced because they didn't handle things very well, and there's a lot of liability that they're trying to collect through the ratepayers. How do we know that when we're this nice little group that we might not get saddled with the same kind of lawsuit?
It's a great question. In this particular case, public entities such as PUDs and municipalities have certain protections under the law. There's Tort Claims Act in Oregon that limits liability from things like wildfire. There are some litigations happening currently that are testing that to some degree, but we're fairly confident it would hold up. It's a protection that's widely enjoyed by every municipality and special district that's similar to EPUD. So we do have protections that are much different than what you see from the investor-owned utilities there.
Anyone else? Counselor Urban.
Part of what this documentation was highlighting were just the Oregon specific regulations when it comes to clean energy and standards. Are you under those same rules, or is that a separate?
Yeah, great question. It's a bit of a mix. For the most part, no. Most of the legislation that's been passed in the clean energy arena is specific to investor-owned utilities. There is a renewable portfolio standard that was passed 10, 15 years ago, and we do fall under that, but we're already very compliant. We have, more clean energy than we know what to do with, frankly, with the dams on the hydro or up in the Columbia River. Plus, we have a generation plant over here at the Short Mountain landfill that generates credits we can use to comply with that. So we don't anticipate any additional cost in the near term on that front. That doesn't mean the legislature couldn't try to pass something in the future. But right now, all the requirements that you're referencing, whether that's 100% renewable by 2040, that's all investor-owned utilities, not consumer-owned utilities. They tend to leave us alone because we have a good thing going and we have local control, and they defer to that.
Councilor Urban.
So it sounded like there was 3 asks. Statement of interest, potentially, which would that proceed? Any discussions on a feasibility study?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good first step. That'd be my suggestion for our board to have some comfort to continue forward. And then, I could work with your staff on what a feasibility study might look like and come up with some options on that.
And the avenue vote, basically temperature taking vote.
Yeah.
Is that something that goes through the ballot process in Oregon? Or is that separate?
Yeah, that's my understanding. When others have tried this, in Hermiston, for instance, they actually put it on the ballot. It was non-binding advisory. And, it's a way to have maybe a little more confidence that the public is behind this effort. And before we move forward in spending big dollars, that would be something that would allow us to kind of have that confidence on both sides.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Well, we certainly appreciate your time and effort and everything that you put into this presentation. It was very informative.
Thank you.
for
Appreciate you
being
having us here.
Councilor Sotomayor?
So have we given the statement of interest? Or is that something we should do just thumbs up?
We can do consensus, or we can do that. We can do that now, or we can do that later in the meeting. Councilor Lammerman?
Were we officially going to be hearing from PPNO or?
They're on a couple people are here to speak.
Okay.
Right. Appearance of interested citizens. This is a time for citizen comment. The council will first take comments addressing items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. The council will then take comments addressing action items on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their name, identify whether they are a city resident, and if so, their ward. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only at that hearing. The council will not make any decisions based on public comment. However, staff and council may choose to ask questions or comment following the conclusion of citizen comments. Ananda Reeves.
My name is Ananda Reeves. I'm a citizen of Cottage Grove. I live on Madison Avenue. And thank you all very much for having me today. I'm here on a really positive note. I am the event planner for World Peace Day happening September 21st. It goes on all day because there's too much demand for peace. People just really want to be out and involved in peace. And I just couldn't stop, creating the program. It's amazing. It goes on from 9 to 5. It's in Corner Park. We have an absolute beautiful lineup of musicians, poets, children, youth. There's a lot of diversity, interfaith connections. So the theme for the World Peace Day is peace through unity. And we've learned by previous peace celebrations here in town, this is the 3rd year in running, but we can't get to peace until we have unity. And so how do we create unity in our community, especially at a time when things are all divided? Well, we can just invite everybody out to play with us. We just come out and play, put the worries of the world down, come out and spend the day in the park with your community. There's lots of information that you can get. There's information booths. Nothing's for sale. There's no vendors. Just save enough money for lunch. But we have an amazing program lined up. And from where I stand as the event planner, I have to honestly say that this is an extremely important job right now in Cottage Grove. And people are standing up. They're taking initiative. They're offering their skills, their talents. We're getting funding this year. People are stepping up and saying, we need to see peace in our town. And in order to get to peace, we need the unity. So very, very excited about this year's events. We'll be in the newspaper article next week in the Sentinel. I'll be on KNND on the 18th of September. Call-ins are welcome. And it's all just coming together extremely easy because people want it. And from where I stand, everybody says, yeah, we need more peace right now. And so it's a privilege to be able to work on this as the event planner. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, I got extra bonus minutes. Do I get to start again?
Bill Spencer.
I'm from Cresswell. Many of you may have been at our gas station, the 76 station, and the reference earlier to the ice storm was what I really wanted to talk about. We know what it's like to have all of South Lane County trying to get gas and propane from us. And so I'll go back to when I voted to keep Pacific Power in Cresswell. I didn't think they'd be cheaper, but I did it for one reason, and that is I felt they were more reliable. That is just a critical part of this whole thing. You can be outlying area and you're voting and it's your home and you'll deal with it. But when it's a business, and that means in Cottage Grove or in Cresswell, that business needs to be open if at all possible, especially for critical things like what I sell. So when you think about which way you want to go, this whole talk about an island, like we're the island, I'm sorry, but the people on the outside are the ones that are drifting. 17 days in I put in a generator, so I know what it's like to have everybody at my door because there wasn't one in Cottage Grove to speak of. But if you end up making a decision and you pick one that doesn't have as reliable service in the area of hospitals, they have a generator, but in the area of stores and restaurants and gas stations, that's real important. So I'm just urging you, don't overemphasize some of the stuff you heard. Give it a good fair hearing, but also think about which one is definitely going to be able to keep the businesses open. I have found Pacific Power to be really good for me. And I don't really like to have all Cottage Grove at my place. I love to have you there one at a time, but not all the same day. So thank you.
Thank you. Scott Salazar.
Council members, Mayor. Good evening. My name is Scott Salazar. I'm the Regional Business Manager for Pacific Power that serves Cottage Grove. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. Pacific Power is proud to serve the city of Cottage Grove. We've been doing it for almost 75 years, and we're committed to continuing service into the future. This push by EPUD is unwelcome from our perspective. No one reached out to have a conversation about this before coming forward with this idea. We are happy to answer any questions the council or members of the public may have. Pacific Power has provided reliable electricity to Oregon customers for 115 years and has served customers in Cottage Grove since 1954. Decisions about service in this area are made out of the Albany office and with the community's best interests in mind. We know reliability is important to customers. During severe storms or outage events, Pacific Power is able to leverage regional resources to restore power quickly and efficiently, just as this gentleman was saying. With the ability to move field crews and contractors to areas that have experienced the greatest impact, we have an in-house meteorology team that provides forecasts 365 days of the year. We use these forecasts in advance of storm outages to pre-stage our crews so that we are ready to begin restoration efforts as soon as the storm is over. We care about our customers and communities we serve, and their safety is our top priority. While the idea of joining a public utility district might sound attractive, the reality is that it's complicated and difficult process. The equipment that serves most of Cottage Grove belongs to Pacific Power. The public utility district would have to buy that infrastructure. And frankly, that equipment is not for sale. These are dynamic times in the energy industry space, and we welcome the opportunity to share the work we are doing to prepare the grid and communities we serve for the future. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Counselor Sotomayor. Yes.
Thank you. We just talked about liability, and it just occurred to me, I wrote down that EPUD took 17 days to get all of their customers back after the ice storm. Do you remember how long it took for 100% of Pacific Power customers?
Counselor, thank you for the question. Luckily, I have the gentleman that's here restoring the power all the time. So if Mark, you wouldn't mind supporting me with that answer. About 5 days. This gentleman says 5 to 7 days.
The infrastructure of the town. Hi, I'm Mark. I'm the district lineman for this area in Cresswell. I only serve Cottage Grove and Cresswell. That's my only job. The infrastructure of the whole town, when everybody saw power came on, was 5 days. There will be, service was ripped down, this, that, whatnot. Certain areas, meters are laying on the ground, things people need to fix or whatnot, but the majority of all the town, when everybody saw the power came on, was 5 days.
Counselor Irvin.
Just so we're talking staff. I understood the question being answered by EPUD being their entire service district of 500 and some square miles. I'm hearing you respond to is in town.
Correct.
Did you talk about service to serve? Like, that's not a good comparison.
So explain that a little bit more. So there, you mean in
Veneta up to Junction City.
So
that was the 17 days.
Every service we have will restore.
right. And the storm did not hit in every area like it did here in Cottage Grove. Cottage Grove was devastated.
So if we want an answer, 17 days to 7 days, we should talk about Cottage Grove specifically and talk about service connections to the houses, not just restored to the substations.
Yeah, and that's what we'd like to encourage council members. It's just an apples to apples comparison. So if there's a piece of information provided in that packet that opens your eyes and seems enticing, please ask us the same question and ask us to maybe try to do the comparison as best we can. We do serve multiple states, multiple communities. We will do the best to focus it right here in Cottage Grove because I think that's what you care about. But that's all we're here to do, is to hopefully have a seat at the table to have this conversation.
Counselor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, Council, thank you. I just want to say I might be partially biased because I am a PP&L customer, but I was only out for 4 days. I gotta say it was nice having power and my fridge working when no one else did. That kind of sounds mean, but I've never had a big issue with PP&L, and I've had them for over 19 years. And I would gladly welcome you guys to the table to have the conversation. I would hate for it to kind of be a one-sided conversation.
Thank you, Councilor.
And if we did end up moving forward with wanting to discuss it more, I would definitely push to have this go to a vote of the people that are actually served by you guys and EPUD versus something we just said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do it. But yeah, I definitely welcome all you guys to the table. And I hope we can have more of a meeting with all the information and not necessarily kind of picking at each other, kind of back and forth. They could be a little bit more constructive. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
I think this is a long process for us and we are going to look at everything apples to apples. You can be sure of that.
Thank you,
And
Mayor.
it's bottom line for us is what's best for the citizens of Cottage Grove. And
Absolutely.
so we're going to look at everything and that's why I think we're even talking about a feasibility study so that we could see exactly what's going on and what both companies can offer. We
Absolutely.
really appreciate you presenting today.
And I'll leave some cards with someone as well if they want to reach me specifically, and I will help facilitate getting you any information, any answers that you're looking for.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Item 6, public hearings. No, that's it. Items on the agenda. Nope, we got them all. We have one for public hearing. That's probably what you're thinking about. Right, public hearings. I'll now open the public hearing at 8:22. These proceedings are being recorded. This public hearing will be held for the purpose of taking comments regarding an offer to purchase city-owned real property, map and tax lot 20-03-32-43-01400. Before we begin, the chair and counselors are required to disclose any conflicts of interest that we have regarding the proposed sale. Does any counselor wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest in either of this matter? See none. We will now have the staff report from Public Works Director, Mr. Stewart.
On May 8th, 2024, the city council approved resolution number 216, declaring tax lot 20-03-32-43-01400, located within the city's industrial park as surplus property, and directed staff to sell this parcel. On August 14th, 2025, the city received an offer to purchase the property from Safe Park Storage LLC for $728,440, subject to the terms set forth in the purchase and sale agreement included in the council packet. The purpose of this hearing is to receive comments regarding the Safe Park Storage LLC offer and other terms governing the sale of the property. Notice of the public hearing was advertised in the Register Guard on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. It's the recommendation of staff to hold a public hearing.
We'll now take public testimony. For all persons testifying, please state your name and address for the record. Elaine Burns. Is she online? Are there any questions from the council? See none. I'll now close the public hearing at 8:24 p.m. Consent agenda. Councilor Irvin,
That the council approve the items on the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Resolutions and ordinances, I see none. Business from the city council. Item A, audit committee appointments. Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening again, Your Honor, and members of the council. We have two citizens that have expressed interest in serving on the audit committee. Brandon Parsons from Parsons Financial and Charlene Sailors, who is also a member of our budget committee. And staff would recommend appointing these two folks to the audit committee.
Entertain a motion. Councilor Irvin.
Move that the council appoint these two individuals to the audit committee.
We have a motion.
A second.
We have a motion with a second. All those, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Concerns from council? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Counselor. Item B, approve the purchase and sale agreement for city-owned real property, map and tax lot 20-03-32-43-01-400. Public Works Director, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, on August 14th, 2025, the city received an offer to purchase tax lot 20-03-32-43-1400 located within the city's industrial park from Safe Park Storage LLC for $728,440. Legal counsel has assisted in the preparation of the purchase and sale agreement, which is attached consideration. The city council has held a public hearing to receive comments regarding the offer and terms proposed for this property sale. I would like to add one other additional item that I received late this afternoon at 2 p.m. The Office of Safe Park Storage LLC would like to your consideration to extend the due diligence an additional 30 days with the contingency of an additional $5,000 non-refundable earnest money would be included for those additional 30 days. This would be applied to the purchase price at the end. Rather than they proceeded with the sale or the purchase.
Any questions, Counselor Urban?
Thank you. It's my understanding that that period was already a bit beyond our normal waiting time. Was there any specific reason given for the request for an additional extension?
Councilor Urban, it's my understanding that they're trying to do a comprehensive review of the property along with what they want to do with it, which requires conversations with the planning department. But my understanding, what they want to do is a storage facility, which is outright permitted. There is one additional information. They've asked staff to renew the wetlands delineation. That's my understanding. Branch Engineering has started that process. Last week, they did a field survey. Once they turn the documents into DEQ for review, state lands for the wetlands delineation, that can take 4 to 6 months. So this timeline would fall into that request to have that delineation.
Thank you. I would make a motion that the city council approve the purchase and sale agreement to sell parcel 20-03-32-43-014000 to Safe Park Storage LLC for $728,440.00 as presented, and direct the city manager to sign that agreement. And that would include the amendment to the amount of time they're requesting.
So just so we're clear, they're asking for an additional 30 days with the expectation that they'll add an additional $5,000 non-refundable earnest money
to the sale price. That would come.
It is to the earnest money. So the earnest money will apply towards the total.
5 to the sale price.
So would that make it a $728,445 sale price?
No.
It's the original offer, yes.
The original.
$728,440.
They'll lose it if they back out, but it's just.
It applies to the total purchase price. If they walk away on their own without, choosing that they maybe couldn't get the interest rate that they wanted to do the project, and it doesn't make it feasible, it's not because the city didn't perform and wasn't able to do it, then the city gets to keep the earnest money, and that would include the additional $5,000.
It doesn't change the sale.
It doesn't say change the sale price, but section 2.2, the earnest money amount goes up.
3.2.
So just to be really clear, this would affect sections 2.2 and 3.2, it seems to me. I can't draft language off the top of my head. So to accommodate the changes that were requested that I only learned about right now. So what I would recommend is that the motion, if you would accept a friendly amendment, it would be as presented and with buyer's requested changes. Subject to city attorney review and approval, and direct the city manager to sign that agreement.
So Counselor Urban.
So I'd like to update my motion here. You're listening closely, so I make the motion that the city council approve the purchase and sale agreement to sell parcel 20-32-32-43-01400 to Safe Park Storage LLC for $728,440 as presented, accommodating the buyer's requested changes, which will be subject to our city attorney's approval, and direct this city manager to sign that agreement.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Counselor Wilson.
Okay. Since there's a yellow not filled in section here on 3.2, what would that date be? Says effective date on or before blank 2026. What would?
So that counts from the date that the agreement is executed, so it can't be filled in until we have signature dates.
Plus 30 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll calculate that and make sure that it is completed before the parties are signing. Thank you for catching that.
All right, we have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Concerns from council? Counselor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, Council, thank you. So I'd like to see about trying to get a consensus from council to advise the city manager whether or not we need to do it in the form of a public hearing or add it as an agenda item to a future meeting to extend an invite to Pacific Power and both EPUD and be able to get citizen testimony at the same time in some way. That way we can kind of hear from both sides and then we can kind of go from there on whether or not we fully want to go down that path of entertaining having EPUD do the impact statement and all that.
Counselor Urban.
Well, as with, I think any decision, supportive hearing information from all parties concerned. My position is I would like, it's not just rates, it's value. Value, this is a combination of many factors, reliability, the ability to respond to disasters, timely. It is rates that I don't quite know how to factor all of that in just yet. I know we're a fairly impoverished community and things that you don't get much choice on are your rates. That's every month that's coming out and those are going up. And so I really would like to seek relief where it's available for the ratepayers of Cottage Grove. Make a decision. So I'd like to hear Pacific Power's case, addressing all the things that they didn't quite have the time or opportunity to today. But I would like to get that information and then move forward with that fairly quickly. If it does make sense to start that process, I'm certainly interested in what that means when a utility doesn't want to sell and what that even looks like. Is this even feasible? But I certainly also wouldn't want to be held hostage and paying and having our citizens myself pay rates that we don't have to get comparable service. So yeah, I'd like to move forward with this and get all the information we can.
Counselor Sotomayor.
I agree with both of you, but I think that Pacific Power has more of the whole story of what they can offer us right now. With their history and things, I mean, they've got some things they can share with us. I think when we were asked to do a statement of interest for EPUD to check on whether or not we might be interested in a feasibility study, I think it would be real important to ask the staff to go ahead and check out the feasibility of a feasibility study with EPUD so we can get a number, you know, for how expensive it is perhaps and those kinds of things. And then that would allow EPUD to go ahead, if we decide that that's palatable, you know, whatever it is, the price comes back. Once they've had a chance to do a feasibility study, and then Pacific Power be told, yes, we're going to try and compare apples to apples, like it sounds like everybody wants, then I think both utilities would be ready to have us, I hope, hey, maybe a town hall meeting or something.
Counselor Lammerman.
Madam Mayor, thank you. So my main thing is just making sure that both parties, PP&L and EPUD, are properly informed of said meeting. They could both come with ample information, have ample time to respond to any questions from either the citizens of the community or council, and not feel like they didn't have a heads up that it was going to happen, or that this was even a topic of discussion. So that's the main thing, just making sure that the people we represent have all the information they can possibly have before we decide to even waste EPUD's time or the city's time to say, go ahead and look at this feasibility study.
Counselor Irvin.
Well, I would say I would support a statement of interest if it means I'm interested in learning the facts. You know, it doesn't mean I want to authorize the city to come up with a deal to pay a certain amount. It's to say, you know, a statement of interest to me is I'm interested in getting the best rates, the highest level of service possible. And if we already have it, yay. And if we don't, let's look into that.
I understand the statement of interest, but it's kind of like doing your own due diligence before you go buy a car. You know, you're not just going to go up to the car dealership and tell me, why should I buy this car? You're going to look at it and get all the information first, and then go and test drive it and tell the car dealer, hey, I'm interested in buying this car possibly. It's the same thing where we're giving these guys the opportunity to present why we should pick them or why we shouldn't. And then saying, you know what, EPUD, I think we should go down this path and look at it. If it's not going to be beneficial to any party to go even give a statement of interest of doing this, because they're going to put forward effort once we say, go ahead and we'd like to pursue looking at this. But if they don't have to, why should we make them spend any money on it in any way?
Counselor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. To kind of look at both your viewpoint here. I think what everybody's looking for is information. Okay. And the only way we're going to get information outside of the polished presentation that EPUD gave us is to direct the staff to gather information from both sides, from both PP&L and EPUD.
Isn't that their job?
Well, directing our city staff to gather the information, work with both EPUD's representations, work with PPNL's representation, gather the necessary information so that we can do the comparison, do our due diligence for the citizens that we represent. We would like, I agree with you that we should have a meeting.
We're not making a decision.
We're not
right
making any
now. We're just
decisions.
in the information
We're just
gathering. So
needing.
this is going to be a long process.
It's going to be a long process, but
So,
we need to have, and I agree that we should have an opportunity for both PPNL and EPUD to present their arguments. But as you said, in a car comparison, I think we got to do our own due diligence, and the only way we get due diligence is if we direct our city staff to gather information for us.
So I would support, Counselor Mary Day.
Yes, I think I agree. There's a long process. There's lots of information to analyze, but I think the basic question we have to address is, do we have interest in even considering it, right? Is that what we were asked? And
I
so-
would definitely support directing staff to look into it and just so that we have information from both sides. Counselor Urban.
If I'm understanding what a statement of interest, the request for that is, if I have a company, I've got it directing it, I've got a board that sets policy. I want a clear signal from someone I'm potentially going to engage with that you're not just wasting our time. You have genuine interest. This is a subject that interests you. It's not just a passing thought. And if something makes sense, you would take action if it makes sense within the parameters. It's not saying what are those parameters necessarily right now. It's something that says we're being serious here. So are we being serious here is really the question we're asking.
Madam Mayor, so one question, and it's based off of one statement that the representative from PPNL said, the equipment's not for sale. So I guess the next question would be, if that's their stance, is there something we can do as a city to say, too bad you're selling it? Because if they say it's not for sale, then what's the point of saying, hey, EPUD, we're interested, even though you can't do anything? That's,
I would think that this would be answered in a feasibility study, you know, how they would go about it and the direct path to that. Am I correct? Sorry. Kyle, could you step up to the mic?
Yeah, that line gets said every time this gets brought up, and we heard the same thing in 1978 when we tried to acquire the system. Then there are well-defined legal procedures to purchase the system. You'll hear that, but we're a prime example of our existence today that the system can be compelled to be sold. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lammerman.
before you sit, too late. So can I ask real quick, do you kind of know off the top of your head, what would that process look like if we said we want to go down this route? PPNL says, sorry, it's not for sale.
Yeah. Well, the first step, again, not getting the cart before the horse would be a feasibility study, making sure that that works out. We'll try to value the system ourselves. We'll ask them for records to say, what's the system worth? Ultimately, it's a negotiation. We can either go through a condemnation process, which gets to be expensive and lengthy, or both sides can say, hey, it's a lot healthier if we just work together here and negotiate a sale price. That's typically what happens if you look at other examples of this.
But what if they don't want to sell? They hold firm and say, too bad we are not selling.
Yeah, there are legal remedies to acquire the system.
So basically force them to sell it?
Yeah.
And it seems a little shady in my opinion, but it's like you like my car, but I don't want to sell it, but you're going to take me to court to buy it.
I've got to stop the conversation now. So we're I guess we would go to see if we have a consensus on if we want to move towards feasibility study? Or an interest of,
Well, staff would prefer that we get a motion.
okay, do we have a motion? I would entertain.
I'd move that staff assist the council in producing a statement of interest from the council that would be presented to EPUD. Says we would be interested in learning more and authorize the staff to have the conversations about what a feasibility study would look like, present that back to council.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion with the second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimous. No? Oh, okay. Do you? Oh, all those opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion carries. All right. Concerns from council? Anybody else?
Well,
Councilor Irvin.
there's a gold mining event coming up here. Right out on Main Street on 13th. And there was an opportunity, what seemed like it was potentially a missed opportunity and then a revived opportunity to have Guinness Book of World Records come and adjudicate the event. And which I don't know exactly what all's involved in that, but essentially there's, I think, the information of somebody would come down, and if the world record for the most simultaneously active gold panners is met, that we would take that title or honor over from somewhere in Australia. There are a couple of things that have to be accomplished prior to being able to proceed with that process with Guinness Book of World Records. It sounds like all of those requirements, which have to do with getting the records and demonstrating that there was actually, or would be actually gold in this area. I can't speak too specifically about what those requirements are, but those are being communicated between the Oregon Miners Association, Georgia at the Chamber, and looks like we can have that done. This is a pretty accelerated process considering we got a response back from Guinness Book of World Records last week, Friday, something like that. Had a meeting on Friday and could move forward. We could pull it off if we can pay. That's basically the bottom line. We means could be the city, it could be someone in the crowd, but I'm advocating for it. I'm advocating for if we have to look at the community promotions budget, because I think it's something that brings a serious amount of notoriety to a location. And that's kind of anecdotal, but I know just from my kids' experience, they collect the books, they look at them, and it's a point of interest where you could come and visit. On the call with Guinness Book of World Records, I specifically asked, is this include like the licensing of this is where Guinness Book of Records event took place? You could have a placard on the main street. He said that's absolutely part of what they do on packages and their use of trademarks and whatnot. So I'm hoping that if the council is supportive of it, that we can authorize this. It's $19,000. And if not, get private donors tonight or tomorrow. So that's the put out there. I'd like to hear if that's something council would support.
Any thoughts? Councilor Wilson?
I was reading over the parameters, the things that were presented in your meeting. I don't know if it's gone beyond what was put out over text to everybody. It seems like there's not as much bang for the buck as what we maybe should get. The adjudicator, and all that, it's not an in-person unless we pay for the travel and how and all that as well. Sounds like the 19,000 does not get a person here. It gets an virtual.
Yeah, they were looking to see where, and I haven't heard back on this part yet. I heard, but if it's not getting as much as it's worth.
We get the licensed social media for a month of publicity that, yes, we set the record, and then after that, it goes away. And it's owned social media, so it's their social media. We don't get to promote ourselves officially, or is that, or do we get does the city of Cottage, or does the city of Cottage? So the city of Cottage Groves, we have the license to be able to say, yes, we did this beyond that month, or just for a short period of time. It sounded to me like there was a 1 month set in stone. You have the license to say, yes, you set the record for a month. It said owned media, owned social media outlets. So if it's only a month's worth of publicity, and then we're no longer licensed to be able to say that we set the record on our own media, unless we're doing it unauthorized. I mean, yes, we'd have the placard. That would be great if we, and T-shirts and all that. That sounded wonderful to have the T-shirts and the promotional things like that. $19,000 seems a little steep for the inability to promote it longer term.
Any other opinions? Counselor Sotomayor.
I kind of have a hard time sorting out costs too, but I'm wondering how much would be lost if this was something perhaps committees that are working with the wall dogs could move, somehow where there's this mural that commemorates this and gets that kind of representation of the event. And that goes through all of our normal tourist things like Lane County Tourism Council. I can't remember the real name, but that kind of thing. I know the word Guinness is pretty wonderful. And so I'm not saying I'm totally against it, but I think there are other avenues where we can also get some pretty good advertisement for this process.
I understand what everyone's saying because I am really torn on this price too. I was shocked to find out how expensive the Guinness book really is to have them come out here. I do see the value of it. And especially as Councilor Sotomayor points out that, we are a gold mining city and we are going to be commemorating that in murals with the wall dogs in the near future. And so I do see that value. And especially if there was a plaque on a gold mining mural would be amazing. And so I could see us fundraising for this. And so I could be swayed either direction. And this is kind of a hard call on, and the problem is our timeline is so short. And so it really needs to be voted on tonight. And Councilor Merriday, do you have an opinion?
Well, yes, to hold the record, we actually have to have the requisite number of people show up. So that's one thing that we really have to make sure we accomplish. And another community can take the title at any time. So that's another consideration. We do get the bragging rights for as long as that condition holds. I don't care if they say you can't or can't say, I mean, we can still say we beat the record. So if I don't know why they would limit until another municipality overtakes us, why they would say you can't say you're the world record holder. Did they make that clear in the documentation?
I believe if you're not using a trademark name, there's no violation occurs. So you can, I mean, I've been by plenty of places that say we have the world's best burgers.
Oh, that's true.
Who's been by more than one of those? Okay.
Yeah.
How many world record standard holders are there in?
Right. So do we want to go to a vote on this and see?
And there's no wrong answer, to be clear. It has a value. It's a value judgment. Would Cottage Grove stand in the long term? Which so just on your point, Councilor Mary Day, my understanding is they cut off registrations at 300. Registered, signed up, names on the thing.
Yeah.
The accommodations are for at least 400 slots. The existing record is 278. And there's people that called me today. Said I couldn't get registered, I can't come on. I said, still come down. Still come down. I don't know how you gauge the amount of interest that this has, but this is kind of a big deal, I think. I thought it was big enough to go and do all of this myself when I heard that, okay, this isn't a thing anymore. No, they're coming out with a book. It's 2026 book is out. Everything's up. Everything's good. There was some snafu when Georgia originally called or did the thing and there wasn't a follow-up. So it's like, I think we know the value, but it's, would we spread this out? Why do we have a community promotions budget for something you get worldwide? Publication goes out. So
there's the case.
There's the case.
I really appreciate all your work, Councilor Urban, on the legwork on this. Do we have any indication from the chamber if they're interested in contributing to this cost, to the 19,000, or are they?
We are in a bit of a pit.
Yeah.
Because there's no time to say,
Yeah.
I didn't hear back. I asked, and I think she did, to reach out to Travel Lane County, to Andy, our representative. There's, so far as I know, they've just, we've had the weekend.
Right.
And hear back from everyone. So I don't have any commitments other than I'll do what our family can afford to have, like bring someone out, put them up. But beyond that, it's just.
So we don't have that, a clear indication of that. So from a budget standpoint, we have the money in a community budget to, if we had to front the whole 19,000 from the city.
We do have a time check. We want to extend. Okay.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, and members of the council. Included in the community program promotions budget, we have a $35,000 line item called rural tourism projects. What we use that money for generally is buying ads in publications like Travel Lane County publications. Sometimes events come along, like for example, this one, that were not originally planned for, because the budget does specifically, have money for Spirit of Bohemia Mining Days, of Slabtown BMX in the past, but not currently. But we support a number of different projects, including the symphony, out of this budget. But we did allocate $35,000 to be used for projects that come along in the course of the year.
Counselor.
Madam Mayor, Council, I say if we have the funding for it, go for it. And then if basically once that's set down, we can see if anybody wants to sponsor and help contribute to help kind of offset some of that, kind of like what we do with the symphony. But I'm for it.
So I could tie it into a gold mining and put sponsors' names that on that mural that sponsored the Guinness later. So that might help. Okay,
Yeah, make a motion.
make a motion.
So is there a mechanism if we do receive donations, is there a mechanism to hold those and replenish the fund, the promotions fund?
Yeah, we could certainly do that. I mean, as a practical matter, for the Wall Dogs project, we've set up a revenue and an expenditure line items. So those are in the budget, that, if we received, a donation for a mural that was dedicated to gold mining and they wanted to contribute additionally or, above the cost of the mural to be able to have it be, the Guinness World Records, we could certainly take the revenue in through the Wall Dogs revenue and expend it out.
Certainly makes it a little more palatable. Yes.
So just to clarify, what exactly the fund line item would this money be coming out of again?
As I said, within the community promotions budget, there is a line item called Rural Tourism Projects. It has $35,000 allocated to it. In past years, the city has utilized this line item to be able to do things like buy ads in publications, Travel Lane County or statewide publications, encouraging tourism to the community, and also to fund projects that come up in the course of the year. As I said, when the budget was approved, there were some specific projects that were funded, like Spirit of Bohemia Mining Days or the Symphony. But we also allocated funds that could be used essentially over and above because, every year in April, when you put the budget together, you don't know what all opportunities to promote the community are going to come forward in the following fiscal year.
I'm just wanting to know, so if I make a motion, I can say to come out of the community advertisement fund or out of the rural
Community promotions.
community
The
promotions?
community promotions budget, the rural tourism projects line item.
And I have one clarification. We have 400 people signed up, not 3. So that's better.
And there are some of us who are giving up watching duck games to be able to be there.
And just one more thing. Has anyone checked the weather? It's good. Okay, good. So someone want to make a motion? Did you make a motion, Counselor? Counselor Leonard? Oh, okay.
So you have the proposal. But I don't think we've responded to yes and the contract. Is that correct? Where's the proposal to contract as well?
I don't think I've seen an actual contract. What I received was an email from a conversation that I think you and the Chamber of Commerce folks has had that gave a price tag for the adjudication package of $19,000. Beyond that email last Friday, I haven't seen any other details.
So I feel like we're gonna have to make we're gonna have a cutoff of 19,000. That's gonna have to be our bar, but then there's gonna have to be a level of negotiating and with a contract and subject to the review. Perhaps, does that sound all? All right, well, I'm gonna try for a motion. If you think that there's more than it needs. Would be that. Yes. Yeah, that is.
Oh, okay.
So moved. Yeah.
So moved.
So moved.
I second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. That's great. All right, anybody else with concerns? All right, well, I'll move on to report from city attorney.
One more.
Sorry, Counselor Wilson.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor. Had an opportunity to further discuss the Youth Advisory Council potential with Chief Chase. And he was going to have a meeting with the school, with the principal and other principal people over at the schools within the district. And we're looking to move forward with that project and potentially have 2 to 4 students through the year be a part of it, possibly like a 2.5 for half a year and 2 for an additional
Good work, Counselor
part of it
Wilson.
on that. And Chief Chase and myself would be liaison to that.
That's great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Counselor Hammerman.
Not necessarily a concern, Madam Mayor. Just real quick before the PP&L and EPUD guys take off, could you make sure to get a couple cards? I'd like them, but they can't just come down there and get them. Thank you.
Report, City Manager.
Well, good evening, Your Honor. I want to thank Councilmember Wilson, and even though he's not here tonight, the police chief for stepping forward to get the youth advisory project going again. I was joking with the chief that a balding old white man who's a non-breeder should probably not be the one heading up a group to work with the Youth Advisory Council. So all kidding aside, I really want to thank the chief and now Councilmember Wilson for stepping forward to get this program back up and running. Just a quick update on both our finance director and human resource director positions. We did not receive any qualified applications for the finance director position. Unfortunately, that's not surprising. There's at least a dozen finance director and or, for larger cities, upper management finance positions currently being advertised in the state of Oregon and Washington. And so starting to work with our friends at LCOG on some options for a better way to recruit for a finance director position. And as we've discussed, they're already helping us out on the human resources director position. We do have an interim human resources director, excellent retired human resources director, previously worked for the city of Silverton and worked for a couple different consulting agencies, who's working with us. We're working with her on issues as early as today. And we also still have our interim finance director. So we have the interim finance director and interim human resources director in place, but we are proceeding to try to fill those 2 positions.
Report from City Attorney.
It's a pleasure to be here and to have listened to all of the presentations. I have nothing for you tonight.
Thank you. Items removed from the consent agenda. I see none. Right now, I'm going to recess the regular city council meeting for executive session. Oh, sure.
So Karen's dollar. And now it's being taken to figure out how they're gonna make this decision. So I just thought y'all might.
Thank you, Ms. Wildryer. All right, the City Council for Cottage Grove will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 192.6602E, which allows the council to meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions. Representatives of the news media or designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session and are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session. Except quiet. The executive session are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive sessions, except to state the general subject of the sessions as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. Council will now recess to an alternate room at the end of the executive session. Council will return to the council chambers to reconvene the regular council meeting.